Hey everybody, welcome and welcome back to my kitchen. I am so glad that you're here. In today's video, we're gonna do something that I've been wanting to do, and this is the time that I have to do it today, and I'm so excited. I'm gonna show you how to make 5 DIY homemade seasoning mix so that you can stop buying the stuff from the grocery store and save yourself some money. I know many of us have plenty of seasoning packs in our pantry, in our kitchen. We go grab a bag of a mix of chili mix, taco seasoning mix, fajita seasoning mix, Italian seasoning, all the seasonings, right? If you're any cook, you have cupboards and pantries full of seasonings that you have bought. But I want to show you how easy it is to make your own homemade seasonings. And so in this video, you and I together are going to make 5 top DIY homemade seasoning mixes. You're going to see how quick it's going to come together and how a lot of the stuff you already have on hand in your cabinets. So if you're brand new to me, my name is Barbara. I live in Tennessee and I talk a lot about gardening on this channel. But when it comes to the fall and winter, we take a little bit of a breather from the garden because the garden is on autopilot. We're still growing food, but it just doesn't take as much manpower as it does in the summer. So we spend a lot of time in the kitchen during the fall and winter months, preserving the harvest from the garden, as well as cooking from scratch recipes. We're doing sourdough and we're doing a lot of DIY. So I'm excited. This will be added to the DIY playlist. So if you haven't seen other things that I've done that are DIY, you can go check out that playlist. I will link it up here. So one of the first things that we've done to kind of just get ready for the day, and what I have set up is I have some mason jars of all different sizes because that's what we're going to put our seasoning blends in. I have my food processor to help us on some of these. I have lids, I have measuring cup, I have my recipes. I'll even have a conversion handout that kind of converts for me tablespoons to cups and things like that. And then y'all, I have a whole bunch, this whole stack right here of freeze-dried seasonings. Now, if you don't have a freeze dryer, I don't want you to turn, scroll, or leave this episode because you feel like you cannot get in on this DIY homemade seasoning mix. Now, I have a freeze dryer, and so we freeze dry a lot of the herbs, or pretty much all of the herbs that we grow in our garden. And so these have been freeze dried either from last year or this past summer. And so I've been saving them for this express purpose. But if you don't have a freeze dryer, you can still grow your herbs at your house, and you can air dry them, like hang them, put them in bundles, and clip them with the rubber band and hang them upside down in your house or in a sunroom, a garage, or basement, and let them air dry themselves over the next 2 weeks or so. Or if you have a dehydrator, you can dry your herbs that way, or you can even put it in your oven and dry on a very, very low setting. So there are many, many options to get dried herbs. Now, you may say, well, I already have 2 or 3 spice bottles of basil and 2 or 3 spice bottles of oregano in your pantry. That's fine, because we can use that stuff that you already have and still make some mixes. So for example, when we get to our Italian seasoning mix, it has a lot of different herbs in it. If you have that stuff in your counter, in your cupboard, then you can go ahead and make your own Italian seasoning mix without buying a separate Italian seasoning mix from the store. So I'm excited to get started. So one of the first things we're going to do is actually get some stuff ready before we make our first recipe. And so what I have here are some bell peppers from our garden that we freeze dried, and we're going to actually blend these up so that we have some freeze-dried bell peppers, and that can be used just as is in regular cooking, but we're also going to use it for a couple of the blends that we may make today. So I want to go ahead and have this ready. So one of the things, again, that is going to be helpful is a food processor. Now, if you have a mortar and pestle, some of these things can be done that way as well. I personally don't like a mortar and pestle, just don't. I've tried it. I don't like it. It just seems to me to be too cumbersome. Another thing though, if you have a coffee grinder, you can also do that. Now, keep in mind, as we're making our seasonings, I'm going to be doing most of mine on a larger scale, meaning the recipes that I'm using, I've scaled up because I want to actually put mine in mason jars. So if you want to only make like a 2-ounce version, like that would be like a salt shaker size, then you would have to scale down. So pay attention as to the seasons that I'm using. And remember, I'm using a recipe that I've created or found on the internet, or I've done a combination of both. But I guarantee you, if I get to the thing and I'm like, ooh, I don't have enough of that, then we're gonna improvise and make do, because I feel like seasoning is personal. It's a guideline, right? So we have our bell peppers here. And so I don't want to grind this up in powder. I just actually want to chop it a little bit so it's more like, what's the word I'm looking for? More like flakes or pieces and not a powder. So I'm going to put this in the food processor and pulse it and not necessarily blend it. Now this is because I'm gonna actually use it in a seasoning blend. If I was using this to rehydrate, because they're freeze dried and wanted to rehydrate them as peppers to use in like soup or fajita mix or something like that, then I could leave them the size that they were. But these I specifically did for some seasoning mixes. So let's check the consistency of that. No, I still want that to be a little bit finer. So I'm gonna have some chunks and then some that are not. And so I also have a funnel as well to put this in our jar. And I'm using a big jar for this because I know that I have a lot of it. As you can see, some of it went into powder and some of it is still whole. And that's perfect for the way that I want to use it. I'm going to put the rest in here. Now again, another way that you can use this, and let's just say I did do into all powder. One way that you can use it is that you can use it like in your potato salad, or think of things that you use bell pepper in. And like for me, I have bell peppers in the summer in my garden. And so let's say I'm making potato salad in January when I do not have fresh bell peppers growing in my garden. Now I can go to the store and buy a bell pepper, or I can use some bell pepper powder per se and put it in the potato salad, and it's gonna have the flavor of bell peppers. Now it won't have the chunks of bell peppers. So again, if you wanna see the chunks and not just have like a one color potato salad, then that's something different. But if you want the flavor, then this is a perfect way to get it. So that should be good. And again, with this, some of these are still kind of whole, but that's fine, because when they get blended in with something else, they'll get chopped even more. Okay. This is our bell pepper mixture. You can see it's a mix of green, red, and yellow bell peppers, mostly green. So these are peppers that we just harvested from our last summer harvest a couple of weeks ago. So we were still pulling bell peppers in the month of November. So that's why most of these are green. Now I also do have some freeze-dried bell peppers. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna actually go get those. I have some freeze-dried bell peppers that are more colors, the red, the yellow, and the oranges. You know what? I'm gonna go get that, and we're gonna add that to this so we can make a whole jar, and then that will be perfect. So hold on one second. Okay, y'all, look at this. These are bell peppers from last summer's garden. I freeze-dried these, and the date on here says October 20th, 2024. So it's been a year since I did that. Let me find my little opener. This is what you call dry sealing. So I put them in a mason jar, and I used a vacuum seal attachment to actually seal this lid. So as you can see, it's completely sealed, which is gonna help with helping with the degradation. As you can see, these peppers still look good. It still has its color and everything. We're gonna open them up now. And I don't know if you heard that, but you can hear the seal pop. We're gonna pour these in, and we're gonna get these added to the mixture. I'm glad I remembered that. Another thing that this is allowing me to do is to actually use the stuff that I have preserved and put up. So I got about 10 bags here on the counter of freeze-dried herbs. This is gonna give me space to add more from this year's garden. So that gives us more of the color, which is perfect. Let's get our funnel. And let's get these in here. And then one other thing, when it comes to preserving food, I've talked about this in several videos. You want to make sure that you're preserving your food in multiple ways. So just like those freeze-dried bell peppers came in handy, I have dumped a whole thing of those when I've made like a big pot of soup or a big pot of chili. I don't have to rehydrate per se, because of course the chili is going to have liquid in it, and so it automatically rehydrates as I'm cooking it. I also have bell peppers that I've frozen in my freezer that I can use and that I can pull out. So, and I have, I think, 2 more of these jars from last year. So the fact that I have it in multiple ways comes in handy for things like right now. Because if all of my bell peppers were frozen, then I wouldn't be able to do them in this way. So let's just give that a good shake. And y'all look at that. Bell peppers dehydrated from the garden. I'm not going to vacuum seal this yet, because I'm going to actually use this in some seasoning blends that I have planned. And so we're going to set that to the side. So we got that. So we have it in case we need it for one of the blends that we're going to do today. So let's get started on our first seasoning mix. And so the first DIY seasoning mix, homemade, that we're going to make today is chicken bouillon seasoning. Now this is a classic seasoning that many times people will buy in the store. It comes in those cubes, but those cubes, a lot of the brands have MSG in it. I don't know about you, but MSG gives me a severe headache. I stopped using products with MSG many years ago. But when it comes to buying seasons, I'm very particular that I'm looking on the back to make sure it doesn't have MSG. Now, again, if that doesn't bother you or you're okay with that, no problem. But when it comes to chicken bouillon, you get them in those little cubes. They're condensed. I think it's what, six in a pack, and you may pay $3 or $4 for that, right? When you can make your own seasoning. So we're going to make a homemade dry seasoning mix for chicken bouillon, and you can still use that the same way that you would those cubes that you buy in the store. So you can add it and make broth out of it, or you can just sprinkle it on for a chicken style flavor. So let's get our ingredients and do the recipe for the chicken seasoning. Okay, so I got my food processor cleaned out. I just rinsed it. I'm not, cleaning and clean. I just wanted to rinse because the bell pepper does have a distinct flavor. Just remember, if you're going to rinse in between your mixes, if you're doing multiple like me, then just make sure that you remember to dry it out, because again, these are dry mixes. So if you have any moisture in your food processor when you're doing it, then it's going to get into your mix, which means your mix is not going to be dry and it's not going to last. But we're going to do the chicken bouillon seasoning. And so the first thing that it calls for, and this one we're actually going to do in a quart size mason jar. So this is the size that I'm using, just because I know that I would use this pretty frequently. So I wouldn't want this like in a salt shaker. So I have kind of scaled the recipe up. So the first thing that we need is 3 cups of nutritional yeast flakes. So if you're not familiar with nutritional yeast flakes, it is a yeast extract. If you look up any recipe for chicken bouillon seasoning, it's going to call for nutritional yeast flakes, even if you eat chicken, right? So it's automatically vegan per se. Now, I guess you could find a recipe that is not plant-based or not vegan or whatever. I didn't see any, but I wasn't looking either. So let me just get this in here. 3 cups of nutritional yeast flakes. Nutritional yeast flakes can be used in a variety of ways, but it can have like a smoky flavor. It can have like a cheesy flavor. So a lot of people will sprinkle it on popcorn. It tastes really good. You could also, if you're plant-based, you can make a cheese sauce, not out of nutritional yeast flakes, but it gives it a cheesy flavor. You add it to your cheese sauce recipe mix. But this is what it looks like if you've never seen it before. So the same color as chicken bouillon. So we need 3 cups of that. So I'm just gonna, again, use my funnel and get it in here. And again, a lot of these measurements, again, I think seasoning is personal. So if you wanted more of something, less of something, or to get something out, then you could do that. Where's my clip? Just so I can close this up. And I got this bag from Azure, not Azure Standard. This bag came from Amazon, but you can also get it from Azure Standard, or you can buy it in the store. It's much cheaper to buy it in one of those places. Okay, so then it asks for some onion powder. So we need 6 tablespoons of onion powder, which is somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 of a cup. I think it's like 3/8 cup, and I don't have a 3/8 cup measure, so we're just gonna do 6 tablespoons of onion powder. So again, when you're doing things like this, you think about whatever mix you're making, think about how often you use it. And so that'll kind of determine how much of it you want to make, right? So for this, I know that I wouldn't sprinkle it on something to use a 2 ounce. I would scoop it and make broth. I would scoop it and add it to seasonings and, other things like that. So that's why I'm doing it that way. And then it calls for 6 tablespoons of garlic powder. So again, y'all, a lot of this stuff you already have in your pantry. Okay. And then we need 3 tablespoons of salt. So let me get my bigger salt thing. And keep in mind that this is a quart-sized jar. So if 3 tablespoons sounds like a lot, remember that we have a quart-sized jar, which is 4 cups. So when you put it in that perspective, it's not a lot. And again, you could always opt to do less salt or no salt at all. That's the benefit of making your own seasonings, because when you buy from the store, you're going to get whatever they put in there. So if you got high blood pressure and you want you some chicken bouillon seasoning and you got to decide between my blood pressure and the seasoning, that's a problem, right? Okay, so then next we need oregano, basil, and rosemary. So I have that stuff here. So let's start with the basil first. And this is where we might need to use a food processor because, again, I don't remember how I packaged this. Yep, see, I have it in leaves. So I need to, let's put this in the food processor. And that way we'll have our basil ready to go. This is basil from last year's summer garden. So that was freeze dried September 2024. I had an oxygen absorber in there in the Mylar bag to help because, again, the freeze dried stuff can last up to 25 years. And so you want to use an oxygen absorber unless I know for a fact I'm going to use it, pretty readily. So let's go ahead and grind up the basil. But again, if you already had basil from the store, then you could use that. Because I'm using my basil from the summer garden and I dehydrated it like this, then I just need to pulse it up. And that makes it very easy. Let's pulse it a little bit more. Get it a little bit more fine. And y'all, it smells so good. It smells like pesto. It smells like basil. Now, I will say, out of all the ways to dry your herbs, freeze drying is the best if you have a freeze dryer, but I don't want you to be discouraged if you don't have a freeze dryer. Now, let me talk a little bit about the freeze dryer. So if you're interested in getting a freeze dryer, what we have is a medium-sized Harvest Right. The Harvest Right brand. This is the biggest sale that they ever have all year long, is during the month of Thanksgiving. So definitely click the affiliate link in my description box and go click on the link and you can see, I think they may be up to $500 off. But if you don't know, you can put your freeze dryer on layaway. It just takes either a $250 deposit or a $500 deposit. I can't remember which one. That's exactly what I did. It took me 17 months and that's how I got my freeze dryer. The layaway plan is so flexible. There is not a minimum amount that you have to pay every month. You do not even have to pay every month. It's just whenever you want to pay, then you pay whatever you have. And then when it's paid off, they'll send it to you. It's just that simple. And so for me, that was the best way for me to get the freeze dryer. Instead of me forking over $3,500 or $3,000 on one fell swoop. And I didn't know if I was going to like it. Didn't know if I was going to use it. It was easier for me to put a deposit down, I'm pretty sure it was $250. And then I just paid as I had extra money. So if I did, a side job or my business, had a bone or whatever the case may be, when I had extra money, I would just send it into the freeze dryer. Sometimes it was $100. Sometimes it might've been $250. Sometimes it was $50. Over time, and I eventually paid it off. And I've had it now it'll be 2 years in February, and I love it. Use it all the time. That's my commercial for the freeze dryer. Now, what I was going to say is that is the best way. Y'all see, I didn't post because I'm yapping. That's the best way to experience your herbs in a very high quality way. It retains the color, it retains the taste, it retains like 95% of the nutrients. And so there is a huge difference between air drying, dehydrating, or freeze drying your herbs. But again, you do what you can until you can't do that, until you can do something different, okay? Because what I don't want you to do is to be discouraged and not do anything. Quit buying that stuff from the store and make your own. Okay, so now we have our basil. So now we need to get this in a jar. Oh, it smells so good. So very good. And look, that one freeze-dried bag made a pint of dried basil. Now, before we forget, we need 6 tablespoons of the dried basil. Now, keep in mind, I'm doing a whole lot. I've scaled this recipe up. My jar is full. Now, you can chop this as fine as you want it. I don't care that it's not, as fine. Y'all, I might need to go up in jar. I think I'm going to have to. That's okay. I think that was 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what I decided to do was I just put it in a bowl. We're going to finish making it, and then I forgot. What I'm going to actually do is actually going to put it in the food processor to blend it all up instead of just doing it together, and that way it'll get a little bit finer because that's how I want it. Now, obviously, you can do it however you want to do it, but the next thing we need to do is our oregano. So again, we have oregano. This is from, it looks like this summer, May 2025. So y'all, I'm so excited I get to use all my little stuff that's been building up. Oh, it smells so good. What does it smell like? It smells like oregano. That's what it smells like. It smells so good. Y'all look at that. So good. Okay, so let's get this blended up. And again, you could do this part ahead of time, right? And before I put it in bags, I could have had it ground up like this, but I didn't know which way I was going to use it because also you can use oregano medicinally as well as culinary. So I keep it in this format in the bags until I know how I'm going to use it. This is our oregano. Let's go ahead and add this to our mix before we forget. So we're going to do 6 tablespoons. Okay, that only leaves that much, but that's okay. We got another one over there. And then the last thing is rosemary. So let's put this back. Now, as you can see that I'm not trying to wash in between each of these because all of these are pretty similar and they're all going to the same thing. But let's find our rosemary in our little stash right here. Okay, here's rosemary. This was just done. This is September 2025. All of this I grew. And you can too. But I encourage you, I know for the longest, and I'm still not the best at it, for the first 2 years, I grew a lot of herbs in my garden. And I grew a lot of herbs in my garden. They just sat there. I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't prioritize doing something with them. I wasn't harvesting them. And so last year I took a really intentional approach of making sure that I harvest my herbs just like I do my vegetables. So, in the summertime, it's really, really crazy. And so I was prioritizing getting my vegetables, and then I wouldn't even harvest my herbs. And so last year I made a point to let me at least harvest herbs, once every 2 weeks, once a month. And I'm still not the best at it, but it's a lot better because you can see I got all this right here, which I have to go harvest herbs this week too. So now rosemary can also be used medicinally as well as culinary. So again, herbs are a great thing to grow. It's great for the beginner. It's great for all of that. This, oh, y'all know what I'm about to say. It smells so good. It smells so good. Okay, let's go ahead and get our 6 tablespoons of rosemary. We're gonna blend this all up together. The other thing this recipe calls for is 6 tablespoons of black pepper. I don't want black pepper in my chicken bouillon mix. I feel like I can add that to my recipe however I want it. So I'm leaving that out. But if you like that, then by all means, go for it. And then for this, instead of the 6 tablespoons of rosemary, I'm only doing 4. So we have that. Let me find a jar for the rosemary, as that's gonna come handy in another recipe. Okay, so we got that ground up. So I'm going back over my recipe. So nutritional yeast flakes, check. Onion powder, garlic powder, oregano, basil, rosemary, and salt, and then the black pepper. The black pepper I omitted just because I don't want that in mine. That don't sound right to me, but that's just my personal opinion. Now I'm gonna pour all of this back into the food processor to blend it up and to make it a little bit finer. I'm just gonna start off by pulsing it. That is so good. So very good. But I think it needs some more garlic. That's my personal opinion. So you know what? I'm going to add some more garlic. That's what I'm going to add. Because I think it needs some more. Now, if I want to make this completely homemade, I could freeze dry my onions and my garlic that I grew and add that to it. But we don't have enough of that to go around for something like this. And now it fits all in our jar. Voila. Just like that. We have at least 3 cups of our own chicken bouillon seasoning. So to convert this, you would just, let me look at my recipe. I think to make it into broth, I think you would take 2 tablespoons of this into 8 cups, not 8 cups, a cup of water to make 8 ounces of broth, if I'm not mistaken. And again, you can do it to taste because you may like your broth more chickeny, less chickeny, or whatever. But this is fantastic. It is automatically vegan or plant-based because we didn't use any animal products. It smells, can y'all smell that? It smells so good. It looks good. It looks just like the stuff that you buy in the store that is way overpriced. And you're certainly not getting this much when you buy it in the store. In those little cubes, it comes, I don't know, like $3 or $4 for 6 little cubes. And then when you buy it in the little shaker, you don't get this much. You're going to get like a little 2 ounce. Well, we got plenty right here. And just like that, it's done. We put our lid on it. We're going to label these all up at the end. But we have our first homemade seasoning recipe done. Now let's move on to the next recipe, which is going to be our, I think I'm going to do the Italian seasoning next because we already have a lot of the stuff. And that'll be our next recipe. So let me get this stuff cleaned up and I'll be back and we'll do recipe number 2. Okay, y'all, we're back for recipe number 2, which is Italian seasoning. Now, Italian seasoning can be used in many, many things. A lot of people are using it for pasta dishes, spaghetti, lasagna, or any type of pasta, just Alfredo, whatever it is that you're using, tomato sauce. You can use it on your pizza. Like it's versatile. And so one of the first things that I'm going to do is we have this beautiful sage, again, that we freeze dried that we need for the recipe. So we're going to go ahead and blend this up. And because it's Italian seasoning, I want it pretty fine, right? Okay, beautiful. And then I think everything else we have blended. This is gonna come together super, super fast. So we're gonna do this in a pint-sized jar because I can tell by the number of ingredients I have, plus how I use it. I usually make them in 2-ounce things, and I already have a couple of 2-ounce bottles that I still have left from last summer that I need to use up. So we're gonna make this, and then we'll I'll end up probably vacuum sealing this to use for later. So we have our funnel, and so for this recipe, we need a 1/2 cup of dried basil. So this is our basil right here. Here is our 1/2 cup. That's our basil. And then we need a 1/2 cup of dried oregano. This is all the oregano we have left. And so that's right at 1/2 cup. So that works fantastic. We need, that says, 1/4 cup of rosemary. So again, we're just eyeballing it using this right here. And again, we can adjust as needed. And then 1/4 cup of dried parsley. This is parsley that you and we freeze dried together. I don't even know how long ago, sometime earlier this summer. Look how beautiful that is. So we need 1/4 cup of that. And then we need, it asks for marjoram. I don't have marjoram. I don't grow marjoram. And I don't necessarily buy it, so I don't have any of that, so we'll leave that out. And then we need 2 tablespoons of dried thyme. So I have some thyme that I bought from the store, so we're gonna add that in. 1 tablespoon of that. But I do have this thyme that I'm gonna try in it, which is lemon thyme from my garden that I freeze dried. So we're gonna try. Oh, it smells so good. Again, if you don't want that in your Italian seasoning, no worries, but I think it'll taste good. So we got a little bit of that in there. And then the very last thing is a tablespoon of the sage that we just mixed up. We're gonna add that in there. And then it says you can add some garlic powder as optional. I'm gonna go with just the green herbs for now and see how that does. I'm gonna put the rest of my sage in here. And we're gonna blend up this Italian. So this is what it looks like before we blend it. I want it a little bit finer. Just a little bit. Again, you can do whatever consistency that you want. Perfect. Let's get our funnel. And just like that, we have Italian seasoning. Now, again, most of the time I'm using this application, using it in the application of a 2-ounce salt shaker. So this would be definitely enough for the 2-ounce salt shaker. And again, if I had more herbs, I could do more, but look at how good it looks. Oh, you can't smell it, but it smells absolutely amazing. All of this fresh from the garden, except that little bit of thyme that I put in there from the store. So that's how we're using that. So that's seasoning number 2 done. Now let's move on to our 3rd seasoning, which we're gonna do a taco and fajita seasoning mix. So let me get this cleaned up and I'll come right back. Okay, y'all, so next thing we're gonna make is I'm actually gonna make some red pepper flakes because that's gonna be used in the next couple of seasoning blends that we're gonna make. And so if you already have red pepper flakes, you don't have to do this step, but I'm gonna make my own red pepper flakes because I have cayenne peppers that I grew in my garden, and these were freeze dried last year. So it's a great way to use these up. These are both from October of last year. Look how pretty that is. So we're gonna make our own red pepper flakes. If you've never made red pepper flakes before, I'm gonna show you just how easy it is. So I'm gonna go ahead, I don't think I need the gloves, but just in case, to be safe. I have the window cracked. Now cayenne is not, sometimes it doesn't bother me, but sometimes it does. So out of precaution, I'm gonna go ahead and put on some gloves, and I am going to put on a mask. So just make sure that if you're doing this at home, and you have people in your house, or you are sensitive to, you know, spicy smells or have asthma or something like that. So just be mindful of when you're grinding hot spicy peppers, okay? So let me open, we'll do 1 jar at a time. And again, these were dry sealed as well. I can already smell them. Okay, y'all, I have recovered. That was something fierce. Now, if you have sensitivity to spicy foods, then you just go ahead and use you some store-bought. We give permission to use store-bought red pepper flakes for these next couple of recipes. But since I had it and I'm using it for other stuff, I went ahead and made my own. So what we're gonna make now is a taco fajita seasoning mix. Now, if you're like me, you've bought a lot of those little packets in the store to season your meat. Now, I understand it's convenient. It's very convenient. You pay $1.50 and you can season your meat and your stuff right up. But that stuff has a lot of other stuff in it besides the spices that you want. And so we're gonna make our own homemade version of taco seasoning that we can use in the exact same way, except it's gonna be a lot less. It's gonna be homemade and we can control the ingredients that's in it. So the first thing that we're gonna use or get is some chili powder. So I'm using 3/4 cup of chili powder. Okay, so I'm gonna be using this pint-sized jar for this recipe. And so it's 3/4 cup of chili powder. So I'm gonna pour that in. And then 1/4 cup of cumin. So this is some cumin that I got from Azure Standard. We're gonna do 1/4 cup. And I thought I had bought some chili powder in bulk. And y'all let me know, what chilies do you use to make chili powder? What pepper is that, I wonder? So 1/4 cup of cumin, that smells so good. And then we're gonna do 1/4 cup of paprika. Let me go ahead and just get my 1/4 cup measure since most of these are 1/4 cup. I'm using smoked paprika. You can use a sweet paprika or regular paprika, is whatever you like and prefer. Let me do some more cumin because I think I eyeballed that and I don't know that it was enough. Cumin, of course, you can grow from a seed. I've never done it before. I hear it's pretty tedious, so we just buy that from the store. So again, even though we may be buying the individual ingredients like cumin and chili pepper, or chili powder, I should say, we're making something that's one less thing that we have to buy, which is the taco seasoning or fajita seasoning mix. And then we need 1/4 cup of garlic powder. Okay. 1/4 cup of, it says 1/3 cup onion powder, but we're gonna do 1/4 cup. Well, we'll do 1/3 cup. 2 tablespoons of salt. If you're trying to watch your salt intake, you can leave that out or put much less. And then it asks for 1/4 cup of oregano. I don't have any more fresh oregano, so that lets me know I need to grow more oregano. I have some oregano in my bed, but the sage kind of took over, so I think I have some oregano up under my sage. But I had this in my pantry. And then it asks for a tablespoon of black pepper. Again, oh, you know what, y'all? I'm actually out of black pepper. So we're not gonna add, I wasn't gonna add it anyway, because I can always add that at the end. I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't like putting pepper and spice. It's just my own thing. And then what's next? So we got the chili powder, the cumin, the paprika, the garlic powder, the onion powder, the salt, the oregano, and then it asks for a teaspoon of red pepper flakes and then 1/3 cup of cornstarch. I'm assuming the cornstarch is to kind of help it kind of stick together. So let me get the cornstarch. Okay, so I looked it up just to be sure because I'm like, I've never put cornstarch in seasonings, but it is what I thought it was, is to help with clumping, and then also is to help thickening, because a lot of times when you're making like your fajita meats, of course, it kind of creates, not a paste, but it creates like a slurry, or so that the seasonings don't just sit kind of on it, or like on the, so that the seasonings can get in, basically. So it asks for 1/3 cup, and again, if you don't want to use cornstarch, you don't have to. Remember, seasoning is personal. Okay, and then the very last thing are the red pepper flakes. I waited to the end because I didn't want to have to open it until I had to. So, oh, and I didn't even show you. This is what our red pepper flakes look like. You can see how pretty that is. And this was a mix of orange and red cayenne, so that's why the color is like that and not just a bright red. And so it says a teaspoon of that. Put the top back on it. And that's it. So I'm gonna actually put this in the food processor because I want it to be ground up a little bit more, especially with the cornstarch and the red pepper flakes. So I'm just pouring that in there. It smells so good, and it smells just like taco seasoning. Go figure. So let's get this, excuse me. And we have our own taco fajita seasoning. Now the cornstarch definitely makes it a little bit lighter, plus it's all mixed up. So that's what it looks like. Let me show you. You can see that there. I feel like my light in my kitchen is off today, and it could be because it's not real sunny outside and I'm facing the window instead of the sun being behind me, but that's what it looks like. So 3rd one done. Now let's move on to the next seasoning recipe. Okay, now we're gonna move on to our 4th DIY homemade seasoning mix, which is French fry seasoning. Y'all, this is my first time making it, but it sounds so good and I've been wanting to make it, so we're gonna do it together. One of the restaurants we go to where we get some breakfast, they have, they serve like these shredded hash browns, but on the top, they put a French fry seasoning. It is so good. I had to ask the cook, I'm like, what is this? Because I went one day, they didn't have the season. I said, hey, you normally have like some kind of red seasoning or something. She's like, oh, that's our French fry seasoning mix. And I was like, what? Say what? Now, again, when we make fries, I used to like put like some seasoned salt on it or something like that. But we're gonna make our very own French fry seasoning mix. So let's get into it. So let's get our recipe. And so this again is going to come together fairly easy. So let's get our jar, which I think we're gonna do this in a pint-sized jar like this. And then obviously we can transfer it to a 2-ounce like salt shaker. But let's go ahead and see how much this makes up. And then I can always transfer it to a 2-ounce salt shaker. So the first thing it says is 1/4 cup of salt. We're gonna add in 3 tablespoons of paprika. It's already gonna be good. Y'all, that taco and seasoning mix smells so good. So very good. Oh, it said 3 tablespoons of paprika and then 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika. Oh well, all I buy is smoked paprika, so it's just gonna have that in there, and that's gonna be real good. So you can always, if you got both, then you can put the both in there. It asks for black pepper. We don't have any of that, which I don't want. I don't usually put that on my fries. Now, there's a restaurant called Checkers that used to have these fries that are really highly seasoned, and I liked them, except I didn't like all the black pepper on them. So I don't need that anyway. And then garlic powder. Now, again, seasoning salt can work, but I want to try this French fry seasoning and see. That's onion powder. We still need onion powder, a tablespoon of onion powder. And then we need 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. Okay. See, y'all, this is, again, stuff that you already have in your cabinet. And then it says we need 2 teaspoons of dried parsley. Remember, we have our dried parsley from the garden. So we're gonna get 2 teaspoons of that. That's a great way to use it. If there's a particular ingredient you're like, I don't know about that on my fries, you ain't gotta put it in there. Okay, and then it says cayenne, which is optional. I'm going to leave that out. And then it says 2 tablespoons of white or brown sugar. We're gonna add that. That's probably also to help with caking. And then what else? A half a teaspoon of celery seed. That's interesting. I'm not sure how that mixes in. I know, now I'm questioning the recipe. I do have some celery seed. I'm pretty sure that I do. Have y'all, if you have made your own French fry seasoning, have you done celery seed? It says a half a teaspoon. Because I'm skeptical, we're gonna do 1/4 of a teaspoon. We're just gonna put a little bit in there. I don't know what that's supposed to do. That sounds odd. But that's the benefit. I can make it the way I want it. Now, let me go get the brown sugar. And then it asks me for some cayenne. I'm not gonna put that. It also says you can put some chili powder in that. I don't want that. So let me go get the brown sugar and then we're gonna mix this up and it'll be done. Again, I'm skeptical about the sugar too. So I'm only gonna do 1 tablespoon instead of the 2 that it asked for. And then that's it. I don't even know if we need to put that in the food processor. Oh my goodness, that smells so good. Y'all, oh my goodness, that smells good. Oh yeah, I can already tell I'm gonna want more of this. So I will probably put this in a, you know what, I am gonna blend it up just a little bit because I can see some of the parsley. And for certain people in my family, they're gonna be like, why is there green stuff on my French fries? Let's just go ahead and do a quick little pulse so that the parsley blends in just a little bit more. I cannot wait. Y'all, we're only doing 5 recipes today, but I can already tell you, I think this is gonna need a sequel, y'all, because I already have other ideas of the seasons that I wanna make. We can do a burger season, y'all. Oh, the options are endless. The options are endless. When I tell you, this smells so good. So very good. Okay, let's shake this up. Okay, and I'll probably put this in like a 2-ounce shaker, but that's our French fry seasoning, just like that. Now, y'all, I'm yapping, so that's why the video is taking whatever time it's taking, but you can see that when I actually do it, it's only taking a minute. So that was recipe number 4. So we have our chicken bouillon seasoning, we have our Italian seasoning, we have our taco seasoning, we have our French fry seasoning. So the very next thing, or last seasoning mix we're gonna make is we're gonna do like a rustic Italian seasoning that's like for bread dipping. So you know how when you go to a restaurant and they have like the olive oil and they put some seasonings in there that's in the olive oil, we're gonna make that like a rustic blend for bread dipping. That's gonna be our final DIY recipe. Okay guys, for our final recipe, it's called a rustic bread dipping blend. So again, I'm gonna use this size, which is a half a pint size for this particular season. One, because I'm not gonna use it as often as I would like a taco seasoning or something like that, or a chicken bouillon, but I still wanna be able to have it on my pantry for when I need it, when I'm doing a lot of sourdough. You can also sprinkle this on top of focaccia as you're baking it. So it doesn't have to be used just for an Italian bread dipping blend. It can be used, you know, as a topping on your garlic bread or things like that. So let's get into it. So again, this is gonna come together real easily. So the first thing is a half a cup of dried basil. Remember, we had already done our basil, so we need a half of a cup. And I'm so excited I get a chance to actually use the things that I grew and harvested. Oh, it smells so good. Where's my funnel? Just to make sure we don't lose any of that. Okay. And then we need a 1/2 cup dried oregano. And that's using up pretty much all that we have here. A 1/4 cup dried rosemary. So very similar, a little bit to the Italian seasoning blend. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and start throwing this stuff into the food processor because my jar is getting a little, because we're gonna blend it all up and then it'll probably fit in the jar anyway. Okay. So we got the oregano, basil, rosemary, and then a 1/2 cup of dried parsley. So again, we get to use up our stuff, which is great. One of the worst things is to grow something and then you don't use it. That's another reason why I talk about using what you grow, right? And then 2 tablespoons of salt. And I think for me, I'm just gonna do 1 tablespoon of salt because that sounds like too much. I can always add more salt. And then it asks for a tablespoon of crushed red pepper flakes. So again, you know, they usually have those red pepper in the dip in oil. So let's use this. Uh-oh, there's a little bit more. That's all right. And that's it. Let's blend it up. I want to be able to see a little bit of the red pepper. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Let me get this in the jar. Y'all, those red pepper flakes are much stronger than anything in the store. Let me just tell you. That made an absolute perfect amount. You can see that there. You can see some of the flecks of the red pepper flakes here. That is absolutely beautiful. Now, another thing that this can be good for, not just for your house, but also this will be a great Christmas gift that's homemade. Okay, guys, all done. I got them all, got the counter all cleaned up. I got them in jars. I have them labeled. And so it has been so fun being in the kitchen with you today, making 5 homemade dry mixes. Y'all, we made chicken bouillon seasoning, we made Italian seasoning, taco and fajita seasoning, French fry seasoning, and then a bread dipping blend. I can already tell you there is going to be a sequel to this video because I came up with other ideas of stuff or other seasonings that I want to make. We're going to definitely do like a burger seasoning. We're going to do a chili seasoning. Drop in the comments. So two things. In the comments, tell me out of the 5 that we made, which one are you most excited about trying? That's number 1. And then number 2, tell me what seasoning you want on the sequel. Tell me what, on video number 2 of homemade seasoning mix. Tell me what seasoning you want me to conjure up and make, something that you use all the time or something that you would like to have on your pantry shelf that you don't have to buy at the store. And y'all, not only do we make these mixes, but we also have a whole jar of freeze-dried bell peppers. We did not use this today in one of the seasoning blends, but that's going to be coming in the sequel. You better believe it. And then also, I'm cooking up a new seasoning blend that I plan to put in the farm. But I got to do some, test and not research. I've done the research, but I got to do some testing. And this is going to be in one of the blends that I'm thinking about selling next. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's gonna be yummy, yummy good. But I'm gonna tell you right now, it's for if you like spice. If you don't like spice, don't even wait for it. But if you like spice, wait for it, okay? So we made the freeze-dried bell peppers. We have some red pepper flakes. And I can blend this up even more if I wanted to. Or we can just put this on food as is. We have some rosemary left over that's freeze-dried. We have basil, sage, and then we already have parsley. So y'all, it was time well spent in the kitchen today. The purpose of this video is to show you y'all how easy it is to make things yourself. Now, I've said before, things come down to time or money. Either you have more time or you have more money and you use whichever one you have the most of. I completely understand that. So for those of you who have very little time, you're working maybe from can to cane and all of that, see if you can find one weekend, one day for an hour and try to make you some homemade mixes. One, it's going to save you money. Two, you're able to control the ingredients and know what your family is eating. And then also, there are so many people right now that are struggling because of SNAP benefits being taken away or people losing jobs and things like that, that it's good to have these skills so that if you can't go to the grocery store, if you can't afford to buy a packet of fajita seasoning mix, if you can't afford to buy a packet or a jar of Italian seasoning mix, or let's say you want to have people over and you want to be real fancy and have you some sourdough bread with some dipping sauce, you can make your own bread dipping blend just like that. So maybe it's not for now, maybe it's for later. So maybe you're saying, Barbara, I don't have time to do that. Well, I want you to learn the skill so that when you have to do it or when you want to do it and when you have time to do it, you know exactly how to do it. This is gonna save you money. Y'all, I cannot thank you enough. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button so that you are aware when I go live and that you can join me in the kitchen, in the garden, on the farm, wherever we may be. Remember, y'all, this is all part of the journey. But whatever we do, let's do it together. Can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye for now, friends.